Live text access, training for real-time intralingual subtitlers.
Unit 5, Re-speaking, Element 3, Dictation Skills. This video lecture explains how to use breathing to support dictation and endurance and has been created by SSML and Velotype. On completion of this training sequence, you will be able to learn how to breathe with your belly, how to manage your oxygen intake to support the dictation, and how to use breathing to support endurance or the capacity to subtitle for long periods of time. This is the agenda of this presentation. Section 1. Breathing. As you have seen, a re-speaker has to do many things at the same time. In this video lecture, we are going to deal with dictation skills. Dictation skills is the first set of skills a re-speaker has to learn, as dictation is the main tool the re-speaker possesses to do their job as professionally as possible. Like one's hands for a typist, a re-speaker has to train dictation skills every day in order to automate them. In this element, we will deal with three main dictation skills, namely breathing to support dictation and endurance, enunciation to support accuracy, and the third one is aimed at reaching mass, or the capacity of a re-speaker to speak as rapidly and accurately as possible. Let's get started with breathing. The other two skills will be dealt with in the remaining 2 video lectures of this element. All living creatures breathe. As humans, we breathe in 2 main manners, depending on habits and position. These are chest breathing and belly breathing. Chest breathing is the normal way of breathing when standing or sitting in an upright position. It is relatively shallow, and as you can learn from the many sources available on the web, it does not use the full capacity of your lungs. Belly breathing is also quite natural among humans, especially when lying in a horizontal position, as gravitation doesn't force the diaphragm down. Belly breathing is characterized by the capacity of the lungs to make the most of oxygen intake. Professional singers, runners, and also re-speakers use belly breathing. In particular, this is needed to always have enough oxygen in the lungs to avoid 2 opposite situations: holding one's breath for too long and breathing too repetitively. In this section 1, I will try to teach you some tips to learn how to belly breathe so as to increase the efficiency of your lungs. To begin with, it is important you understand if you already breathe with your belly or not. To understand this, sit in an upright position, similarly to the one you are going to adopt when re-speaking. Then, put one hand on your belly, just below your ribs, and the other one on your chest. Now, start breathing and see what happens. If the hand on your belly moves, you can jump to section 2 of this video lecture, dictation. If it doesn't move, then you need to learn how to breathe with your belly only. Take a deep breath in through your nose and let your belly push your hand out. Then breathe out through pursed lips, as if you were whistling, like this. Feel the hand on your belly go in and use it to push all the air out. While inhaling and exhaling, your chest shouldn't move. If it does, you need to repeat the exercise by putting some pressure on the hand on your belly. It may happen that the hand on your belly keeps not moving. Keep trying until it does move. Each time, put a little more pressure if necessary. If it doesn't move in the next 15 minutes, stop trying, as you may start stressing too much for this exercise. You can try later. In a week, you should be able to make it. Online, there are many websites that can help you with this. Once you have learned how to breathe with your belly, you need to automate it, as you should not spend energy on breathing. To do so, move to advanced breathing exercises. In particular, you need to find a part of the day, preferably at the very beginning of the day, which you are going to use to daily practice breathing for at least 5 minutes. Then you need to start holding your breath. Pay attention, you don't have to wait until it becomes unbearable. You need to always feel comfortable with it. To do this, take a deep, slow breath from your belly and silently count to 4. Then hold your breath and silently count from 1 to 7. And finally, you can breathe out completely as you silently count from 1 to 8. It is enough you repeat this exercise for 5 minutes. Every week, try to set the bar higher than the week before until you reach your maximum. Finally, you can practice what is called breath walking, or the capacity to synchronize your steps with your breathing. Find a place where you can walk freely without having to stop too often or to change direction too often. For 10 minutes, try and match each step with a fraction of your breathing pattern. Personally, I am very comfortable with inhaling completely for 4 steps, holding my breath for the next 4 steps, and using the following 4 steps to completely exhale. This is a very good exercise to automate your breathing. Section 2. Dictation. To be able and use breathing to support dictation, you first need to automate belly breathing. If you need to think about belly breathing, you will spend too much of your processing capacity. Once belly breathing is automated, you can start with dictation exercises. Start by reading a written text, preferably an essay or an editorial. You should notice an improvement in terms of how easy and accurate the final result is. Then you can move to verbatim and sensatim shadowing exercises. Again, you should notice an improvement in terms of how easy the process is. If you feel awkward, it means you have to invest a little more in automating your belly breathing. Finally, you can go with both verbatim and sensatim re-speaking. Here you should not just notice an improvement in terms of how easy the process is, but also in terms of how good the final result is. This, however, should not be your priority now. What is important here is that you are feeling better with the exercise. Don't be worried if you still feel a little awkward. It may mean you are either tired or that your breathing skills have not been fully automated. Section 3. Endurance. In this last section, we will deal with some practical exercises that you need to do to support endurance through breathing. As you may know at this stage of your training, re-speaking is a challenging profession. The breathing exercises we have done so far are meant to facilitate the process of re-speaking. However, we need to also use breathing to keep the high quality of your product in the long run, as if you are good re-speaking 5 minutes, you may find it harder to work for 30 minutes or a whole day. To use your breathing to support endurance, you can start by a very simple exercise. Remember the breath walk I have mentioned in the previous section? Imagine your lungs are divided into 4 equal parts of oxygen. Now, fill them in. Your lungs should be full of oxygen. Start reading the same text as before while exhaling. When you have no more oxygen in your lungs, stop reading and count how many words and characters you managed to read. Now, fill 2 of the 4 parts of oxygen in your lungs. Pay attention not to cheat. though unintentionally. Your lungs should be half full. Your goal is to read the same amount of text as before. Once again, before inhaling again, put a mark after the last word you managed to comfortably read and see how many words and characters you managed to read. If you have read more than a half of the text you read with your lungs full, this means you have started managing your breathing properly. Now feel only one of the 4 parts of oxygen in your lungs. Again, pay attention not to cheat, though unintentionally. Only 1/4 of your lungs should be full of oxygen. Your goal is to read the same amount of text you read the first time when your lungs were full of oxygen. Once again, before inhaling again, put a mark after the last word you managed to comfortably read and see how many words and characters you managed to dictate. If you have read more than a half of the text you read with your lungs half full, this means you are keeping improving. Repeat this exercise until you manage to comfortably read 20 words, accounting for around 100 characters, with 1/4 of oxygen intake only. A sentence in the real world is normally no longer than that. Once you have reached this stage, it means that you can read a sentence with a minimum oxygen intake. Repeat this exercise by first shadowing a speech and then re-speaking a speech. The aim is always the same, to manage to comfortably shadow or re-speak 20 words, accounting for 100 characters with 1/4 of oxygen intake only. Once you are comfortable with this, you will be able to find your place in re-speaking by managing your breathing according to the number of pauses in the speech to subtitle. In the next video lecture, we will see how to improve quality of recognition. Summary. In this video lecture, we have seen how important it is to breathe with your belly. Then we have seen how to manage your oxygen intake to support dictation. And finally, we have seen how to use breathing to support endurance or the capacity to subtitle for long periods of time, thanks to gradual breathing exercises. Exercises. The exercises for this video lecture are in the trainer's guide and the PowerPoint file.
LTA, Live Text Access. Universitat Autónoma de Barcelona. SDI, Internationale Hochschule. Scuola Superiore per Mediatori Linguistici. ZDF Digitaal. European Federation of Hard of Hearing People FHO. Velotype. Sub-T Access. European Certification and Qualification Association ECQA. Co-funded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. Erasmus Plus project 2018-1-DE01-KA203-004218. The information and views set on this presentation are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official opinion of the European Union. Neither the European Union institutions and bodies, nor any person acting on their behalf, may be held responsible for the use which may be made of the information contained here.